when the zombie virus broke out and we were running out of supplies. My 5-year-old daughter was lying on the sofa, looking extremely calm. Baby me is about to die young. I decided to ask my daughter's biological father for help. I made the call and it got through. That night, a zombie was banging on the door outside. The zombie was dressed in a suit and tie, with delicate features and grayish skin. His beautiful eyes had a strange white glow, unlike other zombies. He had no bloodstains on his body, and was neatly dressed, just like the image of a nobleman before. My daughter was no longer calm and shouted in disbelief. "Mom, did you call the zombie king?" The zombie virus suddenly broke out globally. The whole world was in chaos. There were zombies everywhere and corpses and severed limbs all over the place. Before the virus outbreak, there were many urban news reports on the internet about the recurrence of the COVID-19 virus, and the delay of school starts in many areas. I also received the notice of the delay of kindergarten start. After experiencing the first large-scale quarantine, I developed the habit of stockpiling food in advance. After seeing the news on the internet, I stocked up a lot of food and drink supplies at home. Then, I stayed at home with my daughter and didn't go out unless necessary. Unexpectedly, my daughter and I survived this dangerous disaster. We didn't die in the first batch, but we couldn't hold on for long either, because I didn't stock up much. After 40 days, we were now at the point of running out of supplies. My daughter is only 5 years old, and her name is Coco. At first, she would be scared and cry when she saw those mutated and raging zombies. Now she is not so afraid when she sees zombies. She will also crawl over to see what's going on when there is a noise outside. In the early stage of the zombie outbreak, the owner group was very noisy. Soon, now in the owner group, there are not many living people left. Many of them couldn't hold on, and didn't want to be bitten by zombies. So they jumped off the building directly. My daughter came running over with her short legs and asked me in a milky voice, "Mom, I have a piece of good news and a piece of bad news. Which one do you want to hear first?" At this time, I didn't think there was any good news. But I didn't want to disappoint the child. Pretending to think, I said, "Then I'll hear the bad news first." My daughter said very seriously, "The bad news is that we don't have much food left." "What's the good news?" "The good news is that we can become starved ghosts instead of zombies." My daughter also comforted me calmly. "Mom, don't be afraid. If you're not bitten by zombies, it won't hurt. We haven't been mother and daughter for many years in this life. In the next life, I will still be your daughter to make up for this life." I twitched the corner of my mouth. For a moment, my feelings were complicated. My first reaction was that this little one was being abstract. After all, she was a little expert at surfing the internet before. She learned a lot about hot searches and abstract literature, and she often applied what she learned to me vividly. But, hearing her words, I felt inexplicably sad and distressed. She is only 5 years old. Why did she experience the end of the world? My daughter was lying on the sofa, and there was an inexplicable calmness on her face that she shouldn't have at this age. She sighed slightly. "Baby me is about to die young." I suppressed the tightness in my chest and comforted her gently. "Don't talk nonsense. Baby won't die young. Mom will protect baby. Someone will come to save us." "Certainly. I believe it. Because I received a message from the official 10 days ago saying that they will come to save us and they won't give up on any human being. While waiting for rescue, I also need to consider going out to look for food. But before that, I was going to ask that person for help. Ryan, the crown prince of the Z family. Also my daughter's biological father. He has so many bodyguards around him. He should not be infected. There should also be a lot of supplies. However, we had a very unpleasant time because of what happened back then. He should hate me extremely. I don't know if he will help me." After hesitating for a long time, I entered Ryan's phone number on my phone. But I didn't dial it. My daughter came over and asked me, "Mom, are you finally going to call my dad?" I suddenly turned my head and looked at her in confusion. How do you know this is your dad's phone number? My daughter waved her little hand and said in a confident tone even though she was not in the right. I got it by tricking you when you were drunk. Me? I couldn't believe it. Coco. You tricked me when I was drunk? My daughter looked like a little adult and said matter-of-factly. So what? We are mother and child. What little secret do you have that I can't know? I was stunned and a question mark popped up in my head. I was a little angry and laughed. I am your mom. Can't I have some privacy? My daughter blinked her big eyes and looked at me directly. She asked seriously. Are you angry? What are you angry about? You lied to me and said my dad was dead. As a result, I tricked you and found out that he is not dead. I didn't get angry that you deceived me, and I also seriously performed according to your lie. Now you are getting angry at me instead? I think you are being a little unreasonable. Me. My silence was deafening. No. Are the brains of 5-year-old children so smart and their logic so clear? Why does it sound like I am really wrong? I seriously thought about what she said. Well, it seems that I did deceive her first. I was wrong. My daughter then put her hands on her hips and asked me like an adult. Do you know you are wrong? I subconsciously said. I know I am wrong. Immediately, my daughter waved her hand generously. Okay. I generously forgive you. You should call my dad quickly. Oh. All right. Then, without thinking, I pressed the call button. The phone rang for more than 10 seconds and was answered. My daughter immediately stretched out her little hand and pressed the speakerphone. I didn't hear the person on the other end speak and I became inexplicably nervous. Hello, Ryan. I am Zoe. There was a very faint from the other end, and then there was no sound. I was unsure and became even more nervous. After we broke up, I was pregnant. It's a girl. She is now 5 years old. We are trapped. I suddenly got stuck and couldn't continue. Mom, let me talk to him. At this time, my daughter took the phone. Hello. I am your daughter. I am about to die. I am hungry. I want food. Do you understand? Ryan said, again. My daughter thought he understood and immediately reported the name of our current community. You have to come quickly. Otherwise, you can only collect our corpses for me and my mom. Ryan, After hanging up the phone, my daughter looked at me with shining eyes and said excitedly, Mom, we are saved. I pursed my lips and didn't speak. My feelings were very complicated, and I felt a little strange. Ryan only said 3 throughout. He was not good at words before. But he wasn't this bad at words. Right? After the breakup, his personality became even more withdrawn. Moreover, when I said those things, he didn't question at all. Why? That night, I knew why. At 10 o'clock in the evening, there was a noisy sound outside the silent door. My daughter and I were both awake and immediately became vigilant. Mom, is Dad here? I stared straight at the closed door and shook my head. I don't know. If it were zombies, there would definitely be a roaring sound. But outside, there was no roaring sound. I thought it should be that Ryan sent someone. So I said, it should be that your dad sent someone. As soon as my daughter heard this, she immediately ran over to look. At this time, the door was just knocked loudly. My daughter stepped on the cabinet piled up at the door and looked out through the peephole. In the next second, she was stunned and shouted at me. Mom, did you call the Zombie King? The Zombie King brought a group of zombie minions. It looks like he is going to level our home. My heart skipped a beat. I quickly ran over and looked through the peephole. I clearly saw Ian's familiar handsome face. He was dressed in a suit and tie, with delicate features and grayish skin. His beautiful eyes had a strange white glow. There were also 7 or 8 zombies surrounding him. Unlike other zombies, he had no bloodstains on his body and was neatly dressed, just like the image of a nobleman before. judging from the submissive posture of other zombies towards him. He was indeed the zombie king. Suddenly he seemed to sense someone looking at him. A strange red light flashed in his grayish eyes. He tilted his head and looked at me through the peephole. I was so scared that my heart was pounding wildly and I instinctively backed away. In the next second, the door was knocked again. My daughter looked up at me and asked sincerely, "Mom, tell me honestly, did you remember the wrong phone number?" Me. I also really wanted to think that I dialed the wrong number. But the fact is that Ryan really became the zombie king. He is indeed your dad. My daughter. I was on high alert and quickly went to the kitchen to get a kitchen knife and stared at the door vigilantly. My daughter didn't know when she lay back on the sofa and looked half dead. My dad is really something. After becoming the zombie king, he still answers the phone. I asked him to send us some food. As a result, he wants to take us mother and daughter as food. Baby me is about to be recycled by my own dad. Me. The veins on my forehead twitched a few times. I looked extremely solemn and serious. Ba ba ba. Coco. Shut up. Don't say unlucky words. Go to the room and lock the door. Remember, don't open the door until you hear me call you. My daughter suddenly cried. She stood up and looked at me longingly. Mom. My eyes warmed and tears followed. I was filled with sadness, grief, reluctance, and despair. I knew very well that I couldn't defeat those zombies outside the door at all. But I decided to fight hard. There was only one belief in my mind to live. We must live and wait for the rescue team to come. I forced myself to hold back and said with a choked voice, "Be good. Believe that Mom will be fine." "Certainly." My daughter wiped her tears and nodded. She obediently went into the room and closed the door. After hearing the sound of the door locking, I quickly pushed the sofa to block the door. At this time, there was the sound of zombies roaring and going crazy outside the door. I forced myself to suppress my fear and looked out through the peephole. It turned out that Ryan's knocking on the door attracted the zombies upstairs and in the stairwell. Several zombies roared and rushed towards Ryan and the zombies beside him. In the next moment, Ryan's hazy eyes emitted a strange red light again. Just looking through the peephole, one could feel the powerful oppressive force emanating from Ryan's tall body. The raging zombies were menacing one second, and became submissive the next. Roar. Ryan let out a low growl. The zombies who came with him took out a fire axe one after another and chopped at the zombies who had just submitted. As the axe fell, the zombie fell to the ground, decapitated. The scene was bloody and terrifying. My pupils constricted suddenly and I covered my mouth to prevent myself from making a sound. My hand was shaking so much that I could barely hold the kitchen knife. Ryan even killed the zombies who submitted to him. It was so terrible. Truly terrifying. For a moment, my brain froze and I felt an unprecedented crisis. Suddenly, an infinite sense of despair and fear spread in my heart. It seemed that my daughter and I were doomed. Ryan slowly turned around. The strange light in his eyes showed a dangerous signal. He stopped knocking on the door and took out his phone from his pocket and made a call. Separated by only one wall. My phone rang. But I didn't dare to answer it. I quickly pressed to hang up. Ryan tilted his head and looked at the hung-up call, seemingly thinking about something. After a while, he called again. I was so frightened that in a flustered state, I accidentally pressed to answer. Open the door. Ryan's voice was extremely hoarse. He was the zombie king and had consciousness and intelligence. Otherwise, he wouldn't have found this place. Ryan, don't eat me and my daughter. Okay? I know you can understand me. I beg you to let us go. Okay. I trembled and begged him, tears streaming uncontrollably. No. Eat. Open the door. No. Please go away. I beg you. Please go away. I said while crying. All of you are so terrible. Just pretend I didn't call you. Okay? Ryan didn't speak anymore. After a few seconds, he hung up. I was shaking all over and leaning against the door to look outside. Ryan really led the zombies away. Outside, the door fell into a strange silence. I let out a sigh of relief and couldn't hold on any longer. My legs gave way and I slumped to the ground. Fortunately, he really left. Suddenly, my phone rang. Subconsciously, I looked and saw a text message from Ryan at the door. Food. Just now, all my attention was on Ryan and those zombies. I didn't notice anything on the ground at the door at all. After seeing Ryan's text message, I found several backpacks on the ground at the door. After observing that there were no zombies outside, I quickly opened the door and pulled the backpacks in. At a glance, there were biscuits, canned food, instant noodles, milk powder, bread, sausages, and some rice and flour. Good news. These foods are enough for my daughter and me to eat for a while. Bad news. There is no water. City B is closest to City A, but it is far behind City A in development. After the disaster struck, this city only held on for just 1 month before the network, electricity, water, and gas all fell into paralysis. These days, we have been drinking the mineral water I bought. We used to live in an old community. During the previous home quarantine due to the epidemic, we experienced several water and power outages that lasted for up to a week. The impact of water and power outages is too fatal. So I bought a generator at that time. After moving, I didn't throw it away and brought it here. Unexpectedly, it has come in handy now. As for water, we only have 2 liters of mineral water left. If we drink sparingly, it will last at most 3 or 4 days. When my daughter saw the supplies sent by Ryan, she was pleasantly surprised. Supplies fell from the sky? My eyelids twitched and I looked complicated. Your zombie dad sent them. My daughter was shocked. My zombie dad is great. It seems that we misunderstood him. He really came to deliver food. I gave a soft, but my daughter paused. There is no water. This is too dry. There is food but no water. We mother and daughter will become thirsty ghosts. Me. After a few seconds of silence, I said, I will go out to find water tomorrow. You stay at home obediently. Actually, I was thinking about one thing. I asked Ryan for help with a glimmer of hope. When I saw Ryan appear at the door and was still the zombie king, I was desperate. But seeing these supplies, I had a glimmer of hope again. In a world full of zombies, there is danger everywhere. It is terrifying and desperate. Survival has become the #1 problem. Ryan has become the zombie king. He has consciousness and can control zombies and kill zombies. He also sent us supplies. I thought maybe I could continue to ask him for help, before waiting for the official rescue to come. Use him to help us find resources. While thinking, my daughter also said, it's too dangerous outside. Let my zombie dad help us send some water again. He is the zombie king. Zombies don't bite him. Saying that, my daughter directly took out her phone and called Ryan. The call was quickly answered. My daughter smiled sweetly and said familiarly, hello, zombie dad. I am your daughter, Coco. Ryan's voice was hoarse as he gave an after receiving a response. My daughter continued, thank you, Dad, for sending food to our mother and daughter. But the food is a bit too dry. Thirsty. Want water. Understand? Ryan, Dad. You will send us water, right? Ryan, My daughter smiled sweetly. Thank you, Dad. Dad. You are so great. Coco loves you. In the pitch-black corridor, Ryan's tall figure stood on the top step. His eyes flashed with a strange red light, shooting at the dozen or so zombies in front of him. He was holding a phone and his face couldn't be seen clearly. But the other zombies could feel that their king's aura was gentle at this moment. And when the faint light of the phone went out, a powerful dangerous signal and killing intent instantly came. Ryan stared at the phone's black screen for a few seconds. In his mind was clearly that sweet and milky voice. Thank you, Dad. Dad. You are so great. Coco loves you. A few seconds later, he put the phone in his pocket. He looked at the zombies in the stairwell and tilted his head, seemingly thinking about whether to kill them. Slowly, he walked down the stairs. The zombies immediately made way and quietly followed behind him. When reaching the next floor, Ryan pushed open the door of the stairwell and began to look for zombies on this floor. When encountering zombies, he immediately controlled them. Then to the next floor. And then the next. When he reached the first floor, there were already more than 20 zombies following him. Ryan led the zombies out of the unit building and let out a low growl. Roar. Roar. Sweep the building and kill. The 8 zombies who were originally following him immediately responded with roars and quickly walked towards several nearby unit buildings. And Ryan led a dozen zombies to an open space far away from unit building No. Axon stopped. He didn't know where he took out a pair of black leather gloves and slowly put them on for himself. Then, he lifted the hem of his suit behind him and took out a fire axe from his waist. Turning around, with a swing of the axe, he cleanly chopped off the head of a zombie. Then the second one. The third one. Soon, all the zombies who had just submitted to him were all killed. Ryan stood among the corpses. The sharp fire axe in his hand was dripping blood drop by drop. His grayish face was stained with specks of blood. His beautiful grayish face was cold and the blood on his face added a few more dangerous vibes to him. He walked to an off-road vehicle, jumped up and sat on the roof. With one leg bent, he raised and lowered the fire axe in his hand. It hit the car and made a huge bang sound. Ordinary zombies can't see clearly, but they are extremely sensitive to sound. The hungry zombies wandering around immediately let out roars when they heard the sound and excitedly surrounded it. After being shot by the strange light, they became quiet and submitted. Bang bang. Ryan took his time and slowly and forcefully hit the car again and again to make sounds and attract more zombies. The knocking sound lasted for a long time. After hundreds of zombies gathered around, he clenched the fire axe and jumped off the car. A hunting moment begins. He was agile and chopped at the zombies with a fire axe in his hand. Like the king of hell from hell. One corpse after another fell down and piled up on the ground. Soon, he was the only one left in the open space. He stepped on the corpses and jumped onto the car again and repeated the same trick. There were still zombies attracted by the sound. They submitted and were killed. Finally, dawn came. Ryan stood in a sea of corpses and blood. His blood-stained face was enchanting and beautiful. Captivating. He held the dripping fire axe and stared straight at the zombie opposite. That was a mutant zombie with the potential to become the zombie king in this area. Ryan narrowed his eyes slightly. His killing intent intense. There was a crystal nucleus in its brain. He wanted to kill it. And that mutant zombie sensed the danger and launched an attack first. After a while, the small mountain of corpses and 3 cars with their fuel tanks chiseled open were set on fire. The flames soared into the sky. Ryan took off his gloves and played with the small crystal nucleus in his hand. He kicked the corpse of that mutant zombie into the fire with one foot. Overnight, all the zombies wandering in the community disappeared. The corpses outside the door were also gone. The bloodstains were cleaned up so cleanly that if it weren't for seeing the supplies sent by Ryan still there, I would have thought I was dreaming. It seemed that the corpses at the door and the zombies in the community were all cleaned up by Ryan. This was a good thing. At least the string that I had been tense for 40 days could be loosened a bit. It was extremely quiet outside. There was no roaring sound of zombies as in the past. My daughter soon also found that there were no zombies. Mom, it's so strange. There seemed to be no zombies outside. Could it be that my zombie dad cleaned up all the zombies? I nodded. It should be. My daughter's eyes lit up and praised. My zombie dad is great. With my zombie dad here, we should be able to survive. I nodded again. At noon, I heard a noise at the door. Looking up, it was Ryan carrying a large suitcase at the door. He came alone. I noticed that the suit he was wearing was not the same one he wore yesterday. But it was still clean, beautiful, and stunning. Some people are noble and particular about their clothes when they are human. But even as a zombie, They can still be so particular and stunning. It's to the extent that comparing people can make people angry. And comparing zombies can also make zombies angry. Ryan put the suitcase at the door and stood not far away and sent me a message. At the door. Water. After sending the message, he didn't leave even after I waited for a long time. Those grayish eyes no longer flashed with strange light, and just stared straight at the door. I thought he probably wanted to see us. So, I texted him and asked, "Do you want to see us?" He replied instantly, At the door. I held my daughter's hand and slowly opened the door. I had imagined many scenes of reuniting with Ryan. But never this one. Those hazy grayish eyes looked at me from across the air. I couldn't see the emotions in his eyes. But my heart trembled slightly and my emotions were indescribable. My daughter held my hand on one side and excitedly waved at Ryan. Her eyes were shining, and she excitedly greeted Ryan, "Dad. I am Coco. Your lovely baby. We father and daughter finally meet. Dad. You are so handsome. Even more handsome than the stars on TV. And exactly the same as the image of Dad in my mind. No, even taller and more handsome than in my mind. Me. This little one is the best at coaxing people. The compliments come one after another." The zombie dad on the opposite side was so praised that his eyelashes trembled slightly, and he lowered his head. If his skin could change color, according to Ryan's shy nature, he would probably be blushing now. Ryan's Adam's apple moved and he slowly uttered two words, "Don't. Praise." His voice was still hoarse. The daughter stuck up her finger and waved it left and right at him. Her expression was extremely vivid. "I didn't praise you. I'm just being realistic." This compliment was so perfect that it directly reached a higher level. Ryan pointed at the suitcase. "Water." The daughter was extremely surprised and became a complimenting monster again. "Wow. Dad. You are so cool. I declare that you are the coolest and most powerful dad in the world. Come on. Having a zombie king dad in the apocalypse is really super cool. Dad. I am proud of you. I am proud of you." I twitched the corner of my mouth. I really couldn't stand it anymore. Ryan was so praised that he lowered his head and didn't dare to look at his daughter at all. The daughter still wanted to continue complimenting. I couldn't help but interrupt her. "That's enough. Your dad is easily shy. If you keep complimenting him, he will be so low that he will touch the ground." Ryan nodded. The daughter immediately stopped and became like a little adult. "Well, let's cut the chatter and let me ask you a few questions." Ryan tilted his head and looked at his daughter blankly, seemingly curious about what she wanted to ask. Actually, I was also a little curious. In the next second, I heard my daughter ask, "Are you married? Do you have other children?" I was stunned. Looking at Ryan, a secret emotion rose in my heart. Ryan also looked at me and shook his head. His Adam's apple moved. "No, that's great. No, I mean that I am your only child." The daughter's little brain worked really fast. When she realized what she had said, she immediately changed her tone. "Dad, I am your child, right?" Ryan nodded. The daughter blinked her eyes, looking clever. "Then aside from the fact that you two broke up, she is my mom. Roughly speaking, she is also your wife, right?" "Me? What roughly speaking? How is it roughly speaking?" Ryan thought for a few seconds and nodded again. "Yes. Wife." The daughter continued. "Then we are your wife and child. You are the pillar of the family. Shouldn't you protect our mother and daughter well?" "Me. The case is solved. This little one is brainwashing Ryan." The key is that she succeeded in brainwashing. After pulling the suitcase into the room and closing the door again, the daughter leaned close to my ear and whispered, "Mom, isn't my move great?" My eyelids twitched. "You really know how to roughly speaking." The daughter waved her hand embarrassed lie. "Basic operation. Don't praise. Easily shy. Although I don't know why you two broke up. I didn't sell you out. Now in this extraordinary period, we can let him be our protective umbrella while waiting for rescue. Don't worry. I won't let him hurt you or take advantage of you. Me. This little one really fully inherited her dad's high IQ gene. I have a feeling of being inferior to the old and the young. After that, Ryan would send some supplies every day. Daily necessities. Medicines. Food. Etc. Every time he sent a message, he would add wife. Every time he came, his clothes were different. I wondered where he found so many clothes. One piece a day. Would there really never be a day when he ran out of clothes to wear? In just a few days, my daughter got familiar with Ryan. She called him Dad all the time and gave compliments to make her dad fly to the sky. The days passed day by day. We still didn't wait for the rescue team. Nor did we receive another rescue message from the official. Ryan stood closer and closer to the door. This time, he directly stood at the door. He should have mutated again. His eyes were no longer grayish but blackish red. His speech was no longer slow and stuttering. His voice was as pleasant as before. Are you still afraid of me? If not, can you let me in? I hesitated for a few seconds and finally decided to let him in. The door was closed. I turned around and was suddenly hugged by him. My heart trembled, and my breath stopped. In the next moment, he said something in my ear. I miss you so much. The voice was extremely low, barely audible, but it was clearly heard. My mind went blank for a moment and I heard my own heartbeat. Very fast. Very chaotic. I didn't push him away and let him hold me. I don't know how many seconds passed. On one side, my daughter couldn't help but speak. You've been hugging for a long time. That's enough. If you keep hugging, it will be impolite. Me. Ryan. Only then did Ryan slowly and reluctantly let me go. My daughter immediately came up to educate Ryan. Looking like a little adult. Dad. Listen to me. You are a zombie now, and my mom is a human. You two can hug, but you can't kiss. Zombies' mouths are full of viruses. You are the zombie king. What's in your mouth must be the king of viruses. You can't kiss my mom and turn her into a zombie. I only have this one mom. Me? No. The point that this child is concerned about seems reasonable. Ryan looked down at his daughter and said seriously, you can kiss. The virus is transmitted through blood. Another 7 days passed. At night, Ryan quietly pushed open the door of the master bedroom and walked in carefully. He bent down, approached, and gently kissed my forehead. The cool touch reached deep into my heart along the veins. My heartbeat gradually accelerated. Then, he kissed his daughter's forehead again. After covering us with the quilt, he carefully went out and closed the door. A few minutes later, I slowly opened my eyes. Ryan had gone out. These days, he was always like this. After my daughter and I fell asleep, he would kiss our foreheads and then leave with the key. At dawn, he would come back wearing new clothes. But with my keen sense of smell, I could clearly smell the faint smell of blood on him. So, I probably knew what he was doing when he went out. The next day, when I opened the bedroom door, I saw Ryan lying on the living room sofa and resting. I held my breath and slowly approached and squatted down to look at him. His delicate and beautiful grayish face showed tiredness. A few strands of loose hair were on his forehead. His finely shaped eyebrows were slightly frowned and his long eyelashes were dense. He is Ryan, the favored young master of the top wealthy family, the Z family in City A. Now, he has become this inhuman and ghostly appearance. He is so thin that it makes people feel distressed. Just a handful of bones. It seems that even a slightly stronger wind could blow him away. A lump of bitterness welled up in my heart and my eyes were actually a little hot. I reached out and brushed aside the loose hair on his forehead. I couldn't help murmuring, Ryan, why have you become so thin? Haven't you had a good life these years? In the next second, no. I haven't had a good life at all. Ryan opened his eyes. His cool and beautiful big hand held mine. His hoarse voice had a hint of grievance. My heart missed a beat and I was a little flustered. Zoe. You can't forget me either. Right? Back then. You were all lying to me. Right? I looked into his blackish red eyes. My mind went blank for a moment and I was speechless for a while. Can't forget him? I had met such a stunning Ryan. My love was extremely intense. How could I forget him easily? Ryan is the pampered young master of the top wealthy family. And I am the child of the nanny. Since I was young, I have lived in the Z family with my mom. The master and his wife have no prejudice against me, and let me play with Ryan. They let me and Ryan go to the same school. We are childhood sweethearts who grew up together. For more than 10 years. The master and his wife have been very kind to me. Many people say that I am almost like their half-daughter. At the age when love begins to blossom, I realized that I liked Ryan. Ryan is too dazzling and too excellent. It's hard for me not to like him. Fortunately, he also likes me. We fell in love secretly behind everyone's backs. Everyone knew that we had played together since we were young and had a good relationship. They never thought in that direction. Until at Ryan's 22nd birthday banquet. He was drugged by someone with ulterior motives and had a relationship with me. After waking up, the master and his wife dismissed my mom and asked us to leave the Z family. Ryan didn't agree and told them about our relationship. The master and his wife were furious. They not only drove me and my mom out, but also forced me to break up with Ryan and drop out of school and stay away from Ryan. They allowed his friends to be the children of nannies. But they would never allow him to fall in love with the child of a nanny. We didn't compromise. Ryan left the Z family and was cut off from his financial resources. I didn't listen to my mom's words and firmly chose Ryan. We promised each other to be together for a lifetime. Later, I was the one who broke my promise first. I am not my mom's biological child. She found her own child. That person had heart disease and needed an operation. She cried and knelt down and begged me to break up with Ryan and leave City A. As long as I agreed, the Z family could help her. I couldn't refuse the person who had raised me for more than 10 years and agreed to her. I acted for a few days and then told Ryan that I didn't love him anymore and had fallen in love with someone else. And I was also pregnant with that person's child. Ryan didn't believe it. I found someone else to act. He believed it. We broke up. After I left City A, I found out that I was really pregnant. My thoughts came back. I looked at Ryan. He was sitting on the sofa, looking down at me. His expression hopeful. There was a glimmer of expectation in his blackish red eyes. And there was also a hint of fear. I swallowed and heard my own voice. Yes, Ryan. I still can't forget you. Back then, all those were lies to you. Before the words had even landed, he suddenly kissed me. The cool touch made my breath stop, and my heart trembled again and again. At this moment, a subtle chemical reaction occurred between Ryan and Zoe. The mutual attraction and love between them collided again. When we were almost out of breath, we separated. Looking sideways, our daughter was standing at the door, covering her eyes with her hands. But the gaps between her fingers were very wide. Her two eyes were curved like small crescent moons. She was milky and not blushing or out of breath. Don't worry. I didn't see anything inappropriate for children. Me. I think you saw a lot. Ryan's eyelids trembled slightly and he slowly said, Coco. You are already a mature child. Next time, you should avoid looking and listening to things that are not proper. The daughter thought for a moment and immediately put her hands in her pockets. Okay. Dad. I remember. This time I was impolite. I apologize to both of you. Me. That's not necessary. The mobile phone communication signal disappeared, which meant that the communication base station in City A was broken. I vaguely felt that we should not be able to wait for the rescue team. Moreover, Ryan was a zombie. Even if the rescue team came, he probably couldn't enter the safety base with us. Thinking of this, my mood became complicated. At night, on the dilapidated and messy street, zombies with stiff limbs were wandering and looking for food. In the air, there was a stench and the smell of decay. Ryan walked among the zombie horde, completely out of place with the blood-stained walking corpses around him. He was dressed in a suit and tie, clean and tidy, walking with elegance and dignity. He was like a deity who had strayed into this zombie world. His eyes flashed with a strange red light. He wore leather gloves on his hands and held a blood-stained fire axe. The dangerous signal released from him made all zombies avoid him one after another. The big devil was going out to hunt again. These days, he had almost killed all the mutant zombies in the urban area. What a terrifying zombie king. Ryan didn't know how long he had walked before finally stepping into the territory of another zombie king. That zombie king instantly sensed the danger and controlled zombies to attack Ryan. Ryan moved his neck and looked at the zombies roaring and attacking with their teeth and claws. He waved the axe in his hand and chopped down the little zombies one by one like chopping watermelons. Soon, a pile of corpses fell. Seeing this, that zombie king let out an angry roar and summoned several zombies with quick movements and sensitive actions, who seemed to have a certain degree of thinking. Roar, roar, kill it. Kill it. The quick-thinking zombies immediately surrounded Ryan and attacked him. Ryan narrowed his eyes slightly, his killing intent intense. He took the opportunity to chop at the zombie attacking from the front with an axe, and then quickly jumped onto a big stone not far away. The zombies immediately surrounded him and continued to attack. Zombies were chopped down and new zombies filled in continuously. Just when Ryan was focused on chopping down zombies, that zombie king moved. It pounced like lightning and bit Ryan's shoulder. Ryan's body was unsteady, and he fell into the zombie horde. Daybreak. Ryan lay motionless among the pile of corpses. He had many wounds on his body and his face and body were stained with blood. That sharp fire axe was still held in his hand. Was he dead? No, he killed that zombie king. Acestral nucleus. And his body mutated again. His wounds were healing little by little. I don't know how long it took before Ryan opened his eyes. He staggered to his feet from the pile of corpses. His blackish-red eyes flashed with a dangerous strange light. He could finally control and summon all mutant creatures. Ryan looked down at the pile of corpses. More than a dozen corpses were wearing uniform dark blue clothes with the words Rescue Team of City A written on them. Judging from the degree of decay of the corpses, they had been mutated for a long time. It turned out that the official rescue team did not come. Instead, they had already died here. Half an hour later, Ryan staggered into a large shopping mall and entered a luxury store of a certain big brand that made handmade luxury goods. He did some zero-yuan shopping and got several new sets of clothes. Then he went to a deserted hotel and took a shower using the water in a room's water heater and put on new clothes. Suddenly, he sensed an extraordinary dangerous signal and looked towards the south. Last night, after Ryan went out, I had a very uneasy feeling. As soon as I opened my eyes, I didn't sleep well. I was frequently awake and by nightmares. In my dream, I saw Ryan fighting with the zombie horde to protect me and my daughter. He was covered in wounds, and finally died in the pile of corpses. When I woke up, I was covered in cold sweat. Throughout the night, I had for such nightmares in a row. When it was almost dawn, I didn't dare to sleep anymore. I sat in the living room waiting for Ryan. I just felt that the bad feeling in my heart was getting stronger and stronger. When it was broad daylight, Ryan still hadn't returned, and the scenes in my nightmares frequently appeared in front of my eyes. I began to panic. I was afraid that the nightmare would become a reality. Ryan had an accident and couldn't come back. When my daughter saw me constantly looking at the door and knew that I was waiting for Dad, she hugged me to comfort me. "Mom, don't worry. Dad will come back safely." Only then did I realize that I was shaking violently. I nodded. My throat was so hoarse that it was unrecognizable. He will definitely come back. My daughter obediently sat beside me and waited for Ryan with me. I don't know how long it took. Suddenly, there was a noise outside the door. At this moment, my heart was in my throat. The string in my mind was also stretched to the extreme. Click, it was the sound of the door lock being turned. In the next second, the door opened. It was Ryan. He was back. Without thinking, I directly threw myself at him and hugged him. My voice was choked and trembling. Ryan. Ryan hugged me back and gently comforted me. Don't be afraid. I came back safely. I gave a muffled, I just felt that the smell of blood on him was extremely strong today. Presumably, he had encountered an extremely powerful zombie. Fortunately, he was fine and came back safely. Ryan said that he saw the corpses of official rescue personnel. City A was about to usher in a large-scale zombie tide. We had to leave here. Half an hour later, Ryan was holding our daughter who was wearing an eye mask and earplugs. Together with me, we went downstairs. Behind us, zombies were carrying our luggage for us. When I got downstairs, I saw a large truck. In the carriage, there were about 100 people sitting. They were old and young. All of them were looking at me directly. I couldn't help being shocked and subconsciously looked at Ryan. Ryan explained, "They are all survivors of City A. I will send them to the safety base." I nodded, "Okay." After that, we set off. Ryan was sitting in the driver's seat driving. His eyes emitted a red strange light. Zombies along the way all gave way. My daughter and I were sitting in the seat behind him. Those zombies were sitting on the roof. We drove out of City A all the way and headed east. That was the direction of City B. On the way, we encountered a small-scale zombie tide. There was a group of people trapped in the zombie tide. I saw the words "Rescue Team of City B" written on their clothes. Ryan. That's the official rescue team. Ryan immediately controlled the zombie horde to stop attacking. After the rescue team found us, they didn't come over immediately. Instead, they held guns and were in a vigilant combat posture looking at us. "Are you human beings?" I looked at Ryan and said, "Ryan, let me go and negotiate with them." Ryan nodded, "Okay." We went to the human survivor safety base together with the rescue team. There were 2 banners hanging in front of the huge gate. One read, "Humans will never bow to the apocalypse. The country will never give up on any human being." The other read, "We will eventually defeat the apocalypse and return to our happy homeland." The familiar loudspeaker sound was broadcasting at the gate. "Welcome to the human survivor base. Outsiders, please register information and cooperate with detection. People with wounds and people who have become zombies but have clear human consciousness, please take the left passage." Everyone felt as if a lifetime had passed. Soon, they were all excited and jumping for joy. We survived. We survived. One by one, they lined up voluntarily to cooperate with registration and detection without being told. As for Ryan and his zombie subordinates, they directly took the special passage. Ryan was specially approved by the upper leadership to form a special rescue operation team, because he saved all the survivors of City A and had the ability to control and summon zombies. It was the only rescue team composed of zombies. Later, they became a legendary team, because none of their rescue missions had ever failed. 2 years later, humans eliminated all zombies and began to rebuild their homes. The official Biological Research Institute developed a zombie serum. Those zombies with human consciousness successfully turned back into humans after injecting the serum. The success rate was X. The only failure was Ryan and his 8 zombie subordinates, because they ate zombie crystal nuclei and had all mutated. So the Biological Research Institute developed a special serum for them. In the end, they all turned back into normal people. People carried bags one by one and scattered the medicine particles for killing the zombie virus on the ground like scattering fertilizer. Then there were artificial rainfalls one after another. Only then did this world finally welcome a new life.